As football season inches closer and closer to being a reality, the Kansas State football team has a lot in the way of expectations for the upcoming season. From a brand new offensive coordinator, a new-ish starting quarterback, and a lot of talent on the team that some people may be wondering what each player's role is going to be. That is the goal of this video, to introduce the projected starting lineup and tell you the best part of each of their games. With that short intro out of the way, let's go ahead and meet the team and get one thing that each of the starters will bring to the team this year. Starting off with the most important part of any offense, the quarterback. Avery Johnson is going to be the undisputed starter going into the season after a few flashy performances last year, most notably up against Texas Tech, and a performance against NC State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl where he kept the ball safe and was relatively efficient. The easiest thing to see with Avery is that he has the extremely rare ability to not get rattled in the big moments, and even getting away from the hard-to-judge but important clutch metric, Avery is probably the most physically gifted quarterback K-State has seen in quite some time. If he's able to replicate what he did last year in limited action for an entire season, K-State is going to be a very, very special team for as long as he's here. I've already made an entire video explaining a lot of what makes DJ Giddens such a special running back, so I'll keep it relatively brief here. DJ has the unique ability to just never run himself into bad situations. He can make cuts or slow himself to create worse angles for people in the running game and then turn around the next play to patiently feel out where the best hole for him to run through is. It's a truly unique set of skills that DJ has, and it's what makes him one of the best backs in the Big 12, right alongside his power, stiff arm, and relatively decent speed for a back his size. If you want to talk about someone who has the ability to house the ball anytime he touches it, you have Dylan Edwards. When he was actually being used in the Colorado offense, he already proved his ability to be special in a limited sample size. He has legitimately amazing speed and shiftiness that is exceedingly rare to find in a back, plus the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. It's hard to put into words just how special his ability to house call anything is, but it's something that the offense can certainly take advantage of in the upcoming season, whether it be in the receiving game, the return game, or just a normal running game as well. In limited action last year, sitting behind a future second-round NFL draft pick in Ben Sinnott, Garrett Oakley showed flashes of his potential that could make him one of the most reliable weapons on the team. More so than his reliability, however, is his surprising ability to take the top off of the defense up the middle and his run after the catch ability. He's one of the rare tight ends that can play inline but still keeps the skill set of the more modern wide receiving tight end. Once he gets up to full speed, he's very, very difficult to stop, and he gets up to that speed way quicker than most people would expect. It's yet another in a pretty long line of what should be reliable weapons for Avery Johnson this year. Last year, the Kansas State receiving corps wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. During the back end of the year, however, a true freshman Jace Brown proved to the world that he could be a legit dude for the Cats. His best ability is the most important for most receivers. He consistently just finds ways to get open and show himself to the QB. Combine this with his chemistry with his roommate and also best friend Avery Johnson, you have a recipe for one of the most reliable weapons in the entire offense, with upside to elevate everyone else around him just because he's a constant security blanket. Speaking of upside, Keegan Johnson will look to bounce back from an injury-riddled season last year. When he's healthy, he has the potential and ability to be one of the premier pass catchers in the Big 12 because of his ability to just make plays and get to the end zone. A lot of receivers can catch a slant and gain 10 yards after the catch. That's not a rare skill set. KJ has the upside to catch a slant or screen and take it to the house just because he's that good after the catch and with the ball in his hands. He's the ultimate rack threat for a team that was missing a bit of that last year, and if he's half as good and as healthy as everyone has been saying in the preseason, he could press Jace Brown for that wide receiver run role. After an amazing set of years at Kent State, but faltering a bit at Penn State, Dante Cephas rejoins his former receivers coach Matthew Middleton at K-State. What he brings to the room is the most important thing, is experience in college football. Most of the biggest threats in the receiving room are either young or haven't played as many games as Dante because of injury. That experience, being a guy for multiple years at Kent State, is remarkable. Plus, he has an uncanny ability to separate and make life easy for the quarterback. All in all, in an offense that has a lot in the way of youth, the elder statesman of the skill group can be a massive boost to the entire squad. After spending his entire career at FCS North Dakota, shout out Blake Crawford, Easton Kilty quickly committed to the Cats after entering the transfer portal. He immediately steps in as likely the most talented of all of the offensive linemen that are currently ready to play, and a lot of that has to do with his ability to anchor and pass protection. It's just impossible to bully this guy, which makes him an invaluable asset protecting the blind side of a young quarterback. His ability to anchor also blends with his experience seeing all types of different rushers, albeit at a lower level, to make him familiar with just about any move that can be tossed his way. He's an excellent blindside guy who can really make the offensive line glue together and is almost certainly a future NFL guy. One of two remaining starters on the offensive line from the previous year, Hadley Panzer has one thing down in spades. He knows how this offense wants to operate. He's been around the program for a very long time and has consistently been a solid piece his entire career. His experience in between two new faces on the line can really help them gel together by bridging whatever communication differences between the left tackle and center that they might have had just by virtue of not playing with each other for all these years. Another year, another former walk-on at center for K-State. This one, though, is probably the best of the bunch. What separates Hecht from centers of years past is his surprising strength. He's in competition for one of the strongest pound-for-pound guys on the team, and that alone is worth keeping at the center position. He's going to carry a heavy load given the center's role in the K-State offense, but the physical tools are already there. He just needs to put it together and be that true glue guy that every offensive line needs in the middle. There are technically two names that could slot into this right guard spot, so I'm going to give a bonus entry for both. Andrew Landgang first, and he's been on the verge of a breakout for seemingly years now, consistently being touted as the next man up in the lineman room. A part of that is his flexibility in the offensive line room. He's been the sixth lineman for years now and can play nearly anywhere on the offensive line and, well, a little bit in the offensive backfield as well as a fullback. And as seen with Cooper Beebe, the ability to play multiple positions can be remarkably useful even when you've found your one spot because you begin to understand what the linemen around you need help with the most. That flexibility makes Landgang an invaluable piece to an offensive line that hasn't played much football together yet. And as for the second member of the team, Taylor Poitier, he still keeps his road grading ability, and as difficult and hard as it is to say anything else, that really is a valuable skill set if he can maintain his health for the duration of the season. At right tackle is Carver Willis, and what he brings most importantly is continuity to an offensive line that is only returning 2 of the 5 starters. And that continuity is very important, and at risk of sounding a bit cliched, he's a pretty reliable right tackle, especially after having to fill in a lot for Christian Duffy last year, who in and of himself was a pretty solid right tackle for the Cats. And that's precisely what Carver Willis is going to bring. Consistently solid right tackle play. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, you have the applesauce man himself, Brendan Mott, and the most important thing that he brings to the defense is his ability in run support. And while the defensive end room has a lot of guys, what it lacks is a lot in experience, especially in the run game. And that's precisely what Brendan Mott can do, and that's not to undersell his ability to rush the passer. I mean, he was one of the most effective pass rushers for K-State and has been for the past 2 years. It's just he brings that experience that you need in a 3-3-5 defensive end to properly play the running game, because it's a little more complex than just running straight forward. One of the biggest breakout stories we've seen during the offseason is the emergence of Chidi Obiizor. He already played some in the previous season, and a bit of the reason for that is that he's quite literally the perfect size for a flexible defensive lineman in a 3-3 defense that K-State runs. He can play anywhere on the defensive line except for maybe nose tackle unless it's a pass rushing down, and do it well with his unique blend of size, athleticism, and his ability to almost always be the first one off the ball. That's why Chidi is such a special and important player to the defense and the projected starter over some remarkably talented people just behind him, like Ryan Davis, Jordan Allen, and Travis Bates. Returning at nose from last year, Uso has the ability to just eat space in the middle, and it's not only because of his size, but also because he has the weird ability to move alongside the offensive line and get in their way. He's not just a tree stump, he's able to move alongside the play, and that's one of the most underrated and rare abilities for a nose tackle to have, and he has it in spades, alongside a great deal of power that comes from his frame as well. If he can get a little bit more consistent in pass rush, he has the potential to be one of the best nose tackles in the Big 12. Dez has been around the block in a Cats uniform, but really broke out last year into a very special player. A big part of that is not only his instincts and ability to disrupt a lot of what makes modern spread offenses work at the Sam position, but also just because of his tenacity when he plays the game. He just doesn't do anything in a half measure. He's full go all the time, and blending that with his instincts is what makes him one of the best linebackers in the Big 12, and frankly, he might be the most important piece on the entire defense this upcoming year. Another transfer linebacker has come in, and that is Alec Marenko, and there are a lot of things to his game that make him very important, but probably the one that I want to focus on the most is his range. At his previous stop, he was a remarkably rangy linebacker, which you don't necessarily expect, and it's not something that K-State has necessarily seen too often from the Mike linebacker position, except for in the occasions that Jake Clifton was previously playing it. And although that's a weird skill set, especially in a 3-3, for the middle linebacker to have, well, it's not something that you're going to discard anytime soon. The elder statesman among elder statesmen, Austin Moore has always been a reliable piece for K-State ever since he started playing. You could, and can, always count on the machine. His biggest role this year, however, will be as the primary communicator on defense. He stepped into that role beautifully last year after injuries tore through the linebacking room, and despite a few hiccups, still played really well. Look for the machine to be his usual, reliable self. Another corner in the long K-State catalog of guys that are good but rarely talked about, Jacob Parrish has always had athleticism in spades. That's why he's so difficult to beat vertically unless you're a top 2 round in the NFL draft kind of guy. There's not really too much to say here. He's reliable and doesn't get himself beat vertically too often, in large part because of his athleticism. Keenan Garber, if you would have told me if he was a starting corner a few years ago, I would have called you crazy, and yet here we are. But the most important thing that Keenan Garber gives is not only experience, because he's also played receiver, so he understands what they're doing, but he also has a weirdly good knack for getting his hand on the ball, which, again, maybe comes from experience of playing receiver, but whenever he's in phase and in position, which he's pretty good at given his remarkable speed, he's going to get his hand on the ball, and that's one of the most reliable and best parts about any K-State corner. As tempted as I was to say everything for Marquise Siegel like I did last year, it's his run support that's most special. That's not to say his coverage is bad, because he was a stick of glue on his hands from having 5 to 6 interceptions last year, but he just has this uncanny ability to come downhill and stop any runner before they can truly make any other big threat. He honestly might be one of the best safeties in the Big 12, and picking him for just one thing was very difficult, but Marquise Siegel should honestly be an all Big 12 pick by the time the season is over. When playing out of position last year, VJ was just alright. but when he moved back to his strong safety position, he thrived once again. Ever since his true freshman year, his ability to stick close to a receiver has been good, but it's his punishing ability to hit someone that makes him the enforcer on a defense that already has some pretty salty players. And getting the honor for the little bit of everything guy this year is Jordan Riley. All I should really need to say about him is that he had his best game against Georgia last year when he was playing at Ball State. That should really be enough, but he truly does have the jack-of-all-trades skill set that makes him a very natural fit for the 3-3-5. He's good in run support, he's good in man coverage, he has decent enough zone instincts, and he's a very, very good and capable communicator on the back end of the defense. If there's a defensive backfield glue guy, it's almost certainly Jordan Riley. So that's it. That's one thing that every single projected K-State starter can contribute to the team for this upcoming year. If you want a more holistic view and a much longer way of saying all of these things, please be sure to check out the official episode that my co-host and I, Connor, made previewing the K-State football season. But most importantly, let's look forward to a really big year from the Cats, huh?